Well, I studied art in college, but I was more specifically drawn to Da Vinci himself, and to be frank, it was his science aspects that intrigued me initially the most, and I started reading his journals, and then when I was researching, I went to Florence. I spent a great deal of time in Florence and immersed myself in his history and the Medici and, the secret archives and Pope Sixtus and all of these things. But it was his, I will say it was his anatomical drawings and his science that first pulled me in.
Quindi più il lato Tony Stark che Mona Lisa.
It's interesting. A lot of people argue that if his journals had become more well known a little sooner, he would have been known as history's great anatomist, first and foremost, above art, above science, because his anatomy drawings are so detailed, in some cases down to the kind of detail you would get from an MRI, that some people argue that he should have been known for that more than anything. What's interesting about him is he was a true polymath, and he mastered so many things. Da Vinci is an incredibly well-known figure, but there are gaps in his history, and a number of them, and one of them, there's about a 4 or 5 year gap between the time he was 28 to 32, 33, where there's very little record of where he was or what he was doing, and a lot of controversy as to what he was doing. At one point he claimed he was designing siege weapons for the Ottoman Empire. He even wrote letters to people saying he was doing that. So as a writer, as a creator, when you're dealing with someone of historical importance like that, and you find these gaps, that's gold. Because that, in a way, that's what the show is about. The other interesting gap is when he died, he was known to have had about 13,000 pages of his journals. And within a year of his death, 7,000 of those pages went missing and have never been found. So we know in the 6,000 pages he created the machine gun, the tank and the submarine and the diving suit and the helicopter. And I thought, my God, what existed in the other 7,000 pages?
Internet.
Yeah, exactly.
Probabilmente.
Yes. So this show is, in some ways, although it is based in history and there are many figures in it that are historical figures, it's, in many ways, it's nested in the 4 or 5 years where there are a lot of blank spaces, and in the missing 7,000 pages. Da Vinci was a larger-than-life character. Unquestionably, he was a genius. He was very tortured. I've read all his journals. If you read his journals, clearly he was tortured. He had issues. He had father issues. He drank too much. Some people say he smoked opium. A lot of geniuses. He also had a big mouth. He got in trouble a lot for saying what he felt. So this is as you can see, but I firmly believe that Da Vinci was mostly interested in being a scientist and an engineer, and that he used his art as a means to gain patronage so that he would have the finances to pursue his science and pursue his art. I think he would have preferred to have been remembered as a scientist as opposed to an artist, not to denigrate his art. But I think you've seen, hopefully what you've seen from the clip, that it's a fantasy adventure show. There's mystery, there's conspiracies, he's a larger-than-life character, and the show is larger than life. In the early episode, there's the character that you see speaking. He's colloquially known as the Turk. He has a name. And one of the first things he says is, history is a lie, which I believe, because history is constantly being rewritten by the victors, by the people in control. And he also says time is a river, and that the river is circular. And so I believe in the non-linear aspects of time, and the show, that's one of the themes of the show, is that time is a circle, and these events and themes repeat themselves over and over and over again. So I wouldn't say it's exactly time travel, but time is fluid in the show.
Abbastanza enigmatico, comunque lo accettiamo.
Yes, well, you have to watch. I can't explain everything before you see the show.
Senta, una cosa...
I'll say this. When the show premieres in April, we have a fairly extensive plan for the show. And the finals, if it goes 4 years, 5 years, 6, if we're lucky, the final scene of the show, when it's all done, actually is nested and hinted at in the very first scene. It's history, but with quotations around it, because my approach was more like a graphic novel. So, yes, we did our research, but the costumes are a bit stylized. The look is a bit stylized. In some cases, we took historical fabrics, but used modern silhouettes. And in other cases, we used modern, we did the reverse. So we played around with it. It is history, but not exactly. It's our take on history. Also, there are no visual effects in the clip you saw and the clip I'm about to show, but there are a significant amount of visual effects in the show. My visual effects supervisor did Lost and started Fringe and things like that. And so we plan to bring Florence and Rome and Milan and Constantinople. We'll be going there in the first season. All these places fully to life.